calling to say I
Alright, welcome to another one. This episode I'm just going to do a bit of a rundown on our Steep Point trip on how it went and what was good and what wasn't good. I'm going to run through everything that we did, how we camped, how we got there, and all the fishing gear that I used. My rods, my reels, and of course all the jigs and all the gear that I used, all the tackle, what was good, what wasn't good, what worked, what didn't work. So obviously back, it was a bloody epic trip, 14 days, well 13 days at Steep Point, a day of travel either way. Absolutely awesome trip, but the fishing was actually hard. So this is the route to get over, starting in Denham, heading out across the channel, getting over to the other side of Dirkartig Island. So that's the gap that you go through. That's all channel marked. Then you go straight across to the island, Dirkartig Island there, and now you shoot back down the inside of it, heading around all here, and you end up in Shelter Bay. So you can see on that, that's 52.7 Ks. We had 2 boats and 5 guys, but we also had Richie in the car. So he took his Land Cruiser over on the 4-drive track, and that took a heap of camping gear over, which helped out heaps. Otherwise it'd just be all on the boat and it'd be almost impossible to do. You really need that support car because there's just so much fuel and camping gear, food, water, everything to bring. So you would have seen how loaded up we were, and it was mainly just fuel. So Richie bought a lot of the camping gear in, which was good. Our boat was just absolutely brimming with fuel. I had 980 litres. I should have had 1,000, but I only had 980. We'll go into that later. So I've got my underfloor tank, which is 600 litres. And then I had the 200 litre drum. Well, it's a 44 gallon drum, but I only put 200 litres in there so that it was liftable once we got to Steep. Plan was to drive to Steep, and then obviously the fuel that I've burnt on the trip over, I could get out of that drum and then make the drum liftable. So we used 90 litres on the way over. It's about a 50k trip. Use that 90 litres, drum pump that out, and now I've got 100 litres. I put 20 into a jerry can, 90 litres, 2 blokes, we lifted it off, no worries. Also then had 10 jerry cans. Unfortunately, I'd actually forgotten to fill one of them up, so one of them was useless. So yeah, that tallied up 980 litres, and for that whole 13 days, we used 912. I ended up borrowing 160 litres while we were there. We were going to do a run back to Denham and brim up everything, but the boys had a bit of leftover fuel, and I had some mates at the point that had some fuel as well, so we scattered a bit and got us through. So yeah, 912 litres total that we used for those 13 days, but the haines, she's super thirsty, and that's okay, she is super thirsty. So the run over there was pretty good. It took about an hour to an hour and a half. We didn't really time it, not sure how long it took. We played around with the speeds a lot. Now the boat was loaded up and it did feel heavy, but it still handled it pretty good. And I think next time I could probably put even a bit more fuel on. I could probably go another 100 litres or so. I didn't have much space, but I think I could have loaded up a little bit more. Now we played around with the speeds a lot. The best seemed to be around that 20 knot mark, and that's 4,000 RPM. And it was burning 57 litres per hour, and that's sitting at about 0.7 kilometres per litre. And that sort of seemed to be the sweet spot. We upped it a bit, and it just seemed to, for a little bit more speed, it was just burning way too much fuel. So we backed it off, and yeah, it ran like a dream. But yeah, next time I think I would probably load up a little bit more fuel. For our camp, we had a Honda generator, a 2 kVA generator. I had that running 24/7. So there's a lot of fuel burning as well. They are pretty economical, but it's still nonetheless fuel burning. That was running 3 chest freezers and 3 Engels. We have the 3 Engels for all our cold food, and the 3 chest freezers. We've got obviously a bit of bait in there, all our fillets. That's 20 kilos per person is going into that freezer, and also making ice. We're using bottled water, freezing those each day. So obviously I loaded up my esky before I came. That's full of ice, and that lasted like, I probably got like 3 days out of that, and then it slowly starts melting, and then you're onto the bottled water journey. So each night we would freeze the bottled water up, bang, the next day you got your ice, and we just constantly cycle that through. But yeah, definitely find the 24-hour power. A lot of guys don't run their generator during the night, they turn it off overnight, but all your fruit and vegetables and that, it lasts so much longer if you're just running 24 hours and just keeping those angles at a constant temperature. That's definitely a game changer for us. We always run 24-hour power. On to the bottom fishing. That was our main objective while we were there. It was to target red emperor, rank and cod and the likes. That's my go-to reel, the Shimano Torsa. That's what I was using the whole time there. That's spooled up with 65 pound. I run that on a Masami rod, Seriola 5125. So we found fishing in the 60s. 60s and 70s was pretty hard work. On the first day we rocked up, we had good weather, so we shot off straight away, and the first drop we got double header ranking, and we were thinking, mate, we're going to be on here in the 60s. But after that it just got super sharky and super pink snappery. We couldn't get away from the pink snapper. They'd just be taking any baits and jigs, and that was fishing in the 60s, 70s. Just could not beat the pink snapper. So we had to move in that deeper water. Around that 80 to 100 meters seemed to be the best. Now, as for jigging, it was pretty bad weather, so obviously keeping my jig vertical at times was pretty difficult, so I had to resort to big jigs. That was my go-to. That's my go-to anywhere, the Vex Dewdrop 250 grammer. But I did get a new favourite jig when I was there, and that is the Vexed Dew Slow. This thing is an absolute weapon. Standard jig, but it does have that soft ocky on there, and I found it bloody awesome. I was using it up north on a recent, last year's trip, and I only used it a few times, but I was getting some good success with it then, so I thought I'd give it a go this time. And I found whenever the fishing was quiet that this thing could just get the bite. I do sort of have a fast jigging style, so I'm like working those jigs pretty fast, but with this one it is super slow. I always seem to find you're just getting the bite on the drop, which is awesome, but I could not go past this jig, and it's definitely a new favourite. If I was getting sharked or losing the assists, that's what I replaced them with. Vexed assist. We found trawling for pelagic there super productive. We tried out deeper for like marlin, sails and that, but it was really a no-go. There's heaps of small footy-sized tuna, but nothing to get too excited about. But when we came closer into that 30-meter mark, man, it was on fire. We found some really good fish. That wahoo, found multiple mackerel, and of course the fin. So the water was unreal. It was like crystal blue, and the temps were sort of sitting at that 23, 24, 25. 25 was like the hottest we found it, and when the best fishing was on, it was around that 24, but we still found good fish in 23. Hard up on the cliffs in that 20-meter mark, super sharky, getting lots of fish shark. But when we moved out into that 30s, that was where we seemed to get the best bite. And every time the birds took us straight to the fish. Once we found the birds, the fish were not far from it. And just those hovering birds, they took us to the fish every time. Obviously still sharks hanging around. We found the best method was just hooking the fish and just turning around straight away and driving straight up on the fish and just getting into the boat as quick as we can. I'll run through what my setup was for that. Dawa Dogfight 8000. That is spooled up with P8, so it's quite heavy. Now the rod I use is a U-Pro Jigman. P4 to 8 rod, and obviously running P8 on the reel. I often do run smaller than that. I run 65 or even 50, but in this case, that's what I sort of had running, and it seemed to do the best. As for lures, you really can't go past these. Halco Laser Pros. They got the bite. We also used a few of the Nomad range, and they worked as well, but I think really when it comes to trawling lures, you could probably drag a sausage and still get a bite. Doesn't really matter what lure you use, they seem to get bit. And you're going through a lot, so really whatever you get cheap, use those. There is sharks, you're getting sharked on the odd fish, so you're going through your lures for sure. Came to casting stick baits, just using my trusty Dogfight 85S. That's a P10 rod, and I matched it with another trusty Dogfight. That is spooled up with 50-pound Tasline, And as for lures, we're just using basically the Nomad range. I don't have any here because I got sharked on them all and I lost basically all my fish. My conversion rate was horrible. I got sharked on basically every fish, but Rexy was killing it. He got the fin, he got a few max. I think he was using a bit lighter gear. It was probably still 50 pound, but I know his rod's a lot lighter. And yeah, he was mainly just using that Nomad stick bait range. I hope you've enjoyed the yarn. I'm gonna wrap it up about there. And I hope you've enjoyed the whole Steep Point series. If you haven't already, get over and watch it on YouTube. There's 7 parts and they're all pretty bloody good. So get in, give them a watch, give them a like, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next one.